Good afternoon, everyone. I see that some folks are starting to join in the session. Welcome. We'll allow some other folks to a few more minutes to join in the call, and then we'll get started shortly. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for today's webinar session. My name is Fernando, and I come with the Region 9 Head Start Association. I'll be your webinar host today, so feel free to contact me via the chat option of Zoom with any logistical questions you may have regarding audio, video, or any connection issues. This webinar session today will be recorded and made available for on-demand consumption within 24 to 48 hours up on our Region 9 Head Start Association's YouTube channel, which you can find by going to our website, which is on screen right now, and scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and you will find a link to our YouTube channel. Please note that watching this session live right now and or on demand later via our YouTube channel does not qualify for CEUs. To earn CEUs, viewers will have to access this course on demand and complete the test at continued.com/ECE. To access the course, viewers will use promo code FREE-SUPPORT, which is written on the screen right now, for free access to this course, as well as the Early Childhood Leaders session that took place earlier today. Just so you know, the course should be available online by the end of March. PowerPoint slides and other materials used today are already available on our website at region9hsa.org. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our topic, Emergency Response Strategies to Support Young Children and Families During COVID-19. And your presenters today will be Julie Nicholson, LaWanda Wesley, and Julie Kurtz. Thank you.
Welcome to everyone who's joining us today. We are so grateful that Head Start Region 9 and Continued created this opportunity for us to come together, which is so critical at this time. We all want to feel a sense of community and connection, and we really need to teach and learn from each other, which is what we want to to do today. I'm Julie Nicholson, and I'm a professor of practice at Mills College in Oakland, California. In a moment, I'll ask my co-presenters to introduce themselves. But first, I just want to share what our focus is going to be over the next hour. We're going to start with some research-informed, concrete, very practical strategies that adults can use with young children to help them feel safe and to help their social, emotional well-being and health during very stressful and uncertain times like we are currently in. We're also going to share some ideas that we have been gathering from different schools, districts, and programs about approaches that people are using to maintain connections with children and families, to ensure that children's and families, their basic needs are met, as well as how people are supporting children to learn and be engaged during this time when they cannot be in our programs. There's going to be several times through the webinar when we're going to ask you to share your ideas with us in the chat box so that you can learn from one another, and we'll share out a few of those ideas. So now I'm going to invite my co-presenters to introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Julie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Kurtz. I'm the CEO and founder of the Center for Optimal Brain Integration, where we do trauma trainings online and across the nation.
Hi, all. I'm LaWanda Wesley, and I am the Director of Quality Enhancement and Professional Development for Oakland Unified School District.
Okay, great. Now I'm going to talk through some of these tips, and while I do this, LaWanda is going to put a link in our chat box where you can go to the COBE website and you'll find a downloadable handout that has these tips and a little bit more information about each one. So I'll just quickly talk them through. And many of them will be familiar to you, but you'll see it's helpful even to be reminded about what is so critical, these practices to support children to feel safe, to reduce their stress, and help them build resilience at this time. So first and foremost, most important, children need to feel safe. They need to hear these messages throughout the day. They need your extra nurturing and reassurance, and just to help them feel safe no matter what is happening around them. You can be that calming force. Adults can be that calming force for them. That leads into number 2. Stress is so contagious, and children are absolutely going to be impacted by the mood of the adults around them. When you remain calm and when you remain reassuring, even if there's a whole beehive of activity going on inside of you and all around you, if you can be that calm presence, you'll help them to feel safe, and you're going to reduce the opportunity or the sort of activation of their stress response system and stress chemicals flooding through their developing brains and bodies. It's really important that you have space to talk about your fears and worries, but not in front of children, not directly to them and not in earshot, because that can be very deeply distressing for them to hear. So find your safe person to talk to, but just not our young children. We talk all the time about maintaining consistent and predictable routines. That's just helpful in general for young children. But now in these stressful times, what's going to help them is to have that sense of order that will soothe them. So as much as possible, and I know it's not always possible, but if you can maintain consistent times for meals, play, book reading, bedtime, and things, so that they have that sense of a predictable routine to each day. We want to acknowledge their feelings. So if a child says that something's bothering them, we don't want to say, don't be worried, or that's silly. I don't think any of you would say that, but just to remind ourselves that we want to acknowledge their feelings. I can see that you're worried. Let them know it's okay to experience a whole range of emotions, and that people will express those emotions in different ways. So not everybody will cry when they're upset. Some children might use hurtful words when they're scared. But really what they need the most is for you just to listen, be available, be attuned to them, let them know, let them express how they're feeling, and just that you're there as somebody who cares. You don't need to worry about knowing how to say exactly the right thing, and not trying to jump in or fix it or make it better. A lot of what's going on right now, we don't have quick fixes and solutions for. Just your attuned, consistent, caring presence is really going to help them. We want to avoid and reduce exposure to the news coverage. We need to hear it, but for young children to see the images, to hear those stories, especially as it loops over and over and over, it can just continually activate their stress response system. We want to help children learn strategies to relax their bodies. We can actually help them understand what's happening in their bodies when they feel the signs of stress in their bodies. A racing heart, maybe they describe it as butterflies in their tummy, sweaty hands, and then teaching them some simple strategies to help them reduce and calm their central nervous system. Taking deep belly breaths, doing stretches or yoga poses, a lot of things like rocking and swinging, even just humming a soft lullaby, or petting dogs and cats can be very soothing. But giving them a sense of agency to have some strategies to reduce their stress is very helpful. And then our last tip here is just to remember, we want to make sure we create times for them every single day to be joyful, to engage in activities that are just create a sense of joy and normalcy for them. Whether it's drawing, spending a few minutes outside, reading a favorite storybook, telling a joke, helping you fold laundry, finding times for connection and modeling for children how part of managing a stressful experience is taking time out to laugh, to act silly, to lighten things up with humor and playfulness. These are all really important ways that we can teach children and model for them how to cope and build strength and resilience. So what I want to ask is invite you in the chat box to respond to what I just shared about these practices. Maybe you want to share other things that I didn't talk about that you're doing to help children feel safe in stress, or recommendations that you're making to families that you're working with about how to support their children. Tell us your reactions and your ideas. Okay. Keep things as normal as possible. Telling my families to get outside for 20 minutes. Helping children find ways to see others like Skype. To avoid the media, absolutely. The images especially can be very frightening for children. Allowing them to have their feelings is really important. Bubbles. Oh, bubbles are so fun, and they help get the breath in and out and help calm their stress response system. Great. Zoom so they can see their classmates and teachers. I heard about an example. We're going to be sharing lots of examples today, but I just heard this morning about a childcare here in San Francisco that is having the children eat their lunch together on Zoom so that they can check in, eat, and just chat with one another. Okay, let's move on. Julie's going to talk about talking about COVID.
Thank you, Julie. This is Julie Kurtz, and there are two Julies. So it is so important that we remember that the brain of a child under the age of 6 is growing more than any other time in their life. There are 1 billion neural connections happening every second in the young child's brain. So there's a level of vulnerability there. As they have an immature brain and sensory system, we have to make sure that we are doing certain things and then avoiding certain things. And so what we really want to make sure that we do as adults and encourage the adults who are caregiving for children is to stay calm and communicate information that is truthful and appropriate, but for their developmental age. So when we talk about COVID-19, the things that we can mention to the children is that it's a short name for the coronavirus disease 2019. It's a new virus. Doctors and scientists are learning about it right now. Recently, the virus has made people sick, like the flu, similar to the flu. Scientists and doctors think that most people will be okay, especially kids, but some people might get sick. Doctors and health experts and even our family are working hard to help everyone stay healthy. And if it's older children, you might explain some stories of COVID-19 on the internet and social media, and that it may be based on rumors or inaccurate information because they have access to social media. It could increase their fears. We definitely want to teach kids how to stay safe and healthy. We want to teach them how to reduce the spread of germs. It gives them a sense of control when they know what they can do to keep them safe, like cough or sneeze in a tissue or your elbow. Keep your hands out of your mouth, your nose, your eyes. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. And I'm hearing many stories about parents, caregivers, teachers, grandparents that are singing a song for 20 seconds with the kids to make it fun. And follow the 5 steps: wet, lather, make bubbles, scrub, rinse, and dry. So if you can sing happy birthday song twice, that's another way to teach kids. If you don't have soap and water, have an adult help you with special hand sanitizer. Another thing we can teach kids is to keep things clean, and older children can help clean, like cleaning the doorknobs, light switches, or remote controls. And clearly we want to also convey to children that if we are sick, we stay home so we don't get other people sick. Some things that we really want to avoid doing is talking in front of the kids about our worries and fears. Sometimes we think that children are too young to understand, so we talk in front of them. Or we take that phone call with a friend or a relative on the phone, and we don't pay attention that they're playing video games, but they're listening in to cue whether things are safe or not. Another thing that we want to make sure that we don't do, is to dismiss children's feelings. You're being ridiculous. Stop being a baby. Stop feeling that way. I know none of you are doing that, but it can be very common for us to feel distressed by our children feeling distressed. So we want to make it go away by dismissing their feelings, when in fact it's important that we carve out space for children to talk about how they're feeling or what they're worried about. We don't want, as Julie Nicholson mentioned, to allow kids to be exposed to worrisome news stories and scary images that can stay with them, especially as their brains are developing and their minds are more vulnerable to those images and news stories. And we want to avoid language that blames others or, that could lead to stigma. Viruses can make anyone sick, regardless of your race or ethnicity, and avoid making assumptions about who might have COVID-19 or who started it or where it came from. It would be really helpful at this time to just pause and hear from you. If you could put in the chat box any phrases or responses that you have found helpful, that you've used in talking with children, I'd like to share some of them out. What have you done, or what have you shared with children or said to children that's been helpful to them?
So Julie, while you've been talking, just to share, there's lots of great ideas that have been coming in.
Good. Will you share some of them? I'm missing them while I'm talking.
Let me go
Oh,
up.
Daniel sing fun songs. Daniel sing fun songs to wash hands. I encourage them to wash hands with soap longer than before. Interact with the child when they're washing their hands. I love the interact with the child because when we co-regulate them, they feel better about doing it. I like the idea of holding a rock in your pocket to reduce touching everything. What a great idea. Tell them we're helping others by staying home. They love to be helpers. Wow. We count to 20 while washing our hands. And kids do yoga exercises to relax. I think that's another great way to really help children feel safe, is to give them things to do to release the energy in their body. So these are great examples, and they keep coming in. They can clean their dolls. Oh, that's wonderful. I use self-talk to narrate my actions and why I need to wash my hands. And I'll just read a couple more. Keep calm, cozy areas, help them talk about their feelings, cough into your elbow like a vampire, and then they laugh. This is great, everybody. Thank you for sharing. And I know that you'll still be looking at the chat box to see what other people are sharing, because part of our goal today is for us to teach, but also to learn from you and each other. So Julie Nicholson's gonna take over from here for the next slide.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about social connections and concrete supports. But before we do that, I want to say a few words about uncertainty, which, these ideas are connected to the intentionality we have to have in this moment. So for many of us, probably all of us, most of us, uncertainty can be really challenging in the best of times. It can be disabling, it can create worry, it can really disrupt our concentration. For many, create anxiety, frustration, and if it goes on, it can create a sense of burnout. We want to know that in these times of uncertainty that we're not alone. And really, the most helpful strategy that we've learned and has been baked into us in our evolution is to turn towards one another, to huddle together in community with others, to feel the warmth of somebody's breath, to touch somebody, to hold hands, to hug, to listen in. These are the ways that we we soothe ourselves, and they're pivotal for responding to and maximizing our survival in times of stress. So what do we know in this moment is that we're being told to go against all of those instincts, right, in social distancing to prevent infection. And one of the things we want to really reinforce is that it's important if we are going to engage in social distancing, and we all need to do that, that we don't want to be deprived of social connection. Because in doing so and creating a sense of social isolation or loneliness, we're actually going to be putting our health at risk. And I just wanted to share a little bit about this. You know, when we look at the research, loneliness can be as damaging to our health as smoking as many as 15 cigarettes a day. The feelings of isolation and loneliness can increase our likelihood of depression, of high blood pressure, heart disease, and it can also impact our body's immune system and reduce our body's ability to fight infection. So why is this? Because when we feel isolated, when we feel a sense of loneliness, it activates our stress response system, our fight, flight, or freeze function. People who report a sense of isolation and loneliness have higher levels of cortisol, which is an indicator of stress, and that can lead to these problems with inflammation and reduce our body's ability to defend itself from the virus. So we also know that people who are lonely and have the social isolation report more mental health challenges as well. So it's really important that we think about maintaining social connections in a context of social distancing. That social distancing, we don't want it to turn into social isolation. Or another way I've seen this being talked about on the internet is that our physical separation does not have to equate to social isolation and loneliness. And I think I'll stop there, but just to say we are going to share several ideas with you, and we're also going to learn from you ways that you are making sure that social distancing is not turning into social isolation. But LaWanda is going to talk next and share with you what we mean when we talk about these two ideas.
Yes, thank you, Julie. One of the things we know is that social connections and also concrete supports act as a way to support protective factors for our families and definitely for our children. And having these resources can make a difference in terms of having long-term stressful negative effects on our life. And again, this is for our children and our families. So in other words, another way to say that is that we can increase our ability to cope and build resilience by having social connections and by having concrete supports. But one thing we need to do is make a distinction between what are social connections exactly and then what are concrete supports. And what we mean by social connections is really thinking about the relationships that you have with others and other people. And it could be anywhere from your friends to family members to colleagues to our indigenous elders and those that we acknowledge as keepers of our culture. It's even simple as having a pet, you know, and just the touch of the pet. We've even learned that dogs can be very healing for some people. The other aspect of around social connections is really thinking about religious or spiritual groups. I will say for my own network that my sorority is holding a national call on this coming Friday, and we're having a sit-in prayer virtually. So those are all sorts of ways of being connected. But then there's also the things that we do around our sporting activities or hobbies that we have. But what we're trying to do in all of this is really turn to one another, to be in connection with one another. But then what we realize, we have each other, but then I still need tangible, concrete supports. I still need those things that will keep me afloat. And those are goods and services that we can provide and support each other. And that can be in the fashion of food or housing. We're talking about, I know within our own school district, we have grab and go meals, and so do a number of programs across the country and definitely within California. And then also thinking about access to like childcare referral agencies or free access to Wi-Fi or ways to get free phones. Some people may not even know about that. There's a way to get access to free phones, and that's all community-based. And thinking about all of these sorts of resources that will keep us connected both in with one another, but also the concrete, tangible resources that will keep us afloat that we know is so necessary. And we know that this will all help us navigate through this time that is very much unprecedented and unknown, but together we can build these social connections as well as these concrete supports. And then I'm going to transfer this to Julie Kurtz to talk about community resilience.
Oh, I heard an amazing story yesterday from Kathleen Kelly, who's a program manager at the Early Learning Institute in Sonoma County. And she talked about what the community has faced. They've been hit so hard by wildfires. 2017, there were fires. Then they lost homes in the Tubbs fires. Then 2018, the smoke billowed in from the Paradise fires and created a lot of triggers. There was flooding in the Russian River. Then 2019, there were the Kincaid fires, and they had to all evacuate their community. And she just talked a lot about this community coming together for resilience. And one of the specific things that she mentioned is that the families most of them have a smartphone, she said, and they, what their community members are doing that work for them is they call the family and ask them how they can provide support to them. For example, they're now doing virtual home visits where they'll sometimes FaceTime with families that are able to do that. And they use the WhatsApp or phone or Facebook to communicate, but they always ask the families, what's the best way to communicate? And they're finding new ways to keep social connections with families. And I'll mention one last thing, that Silicon Valley, I learned yesterday that the Santa Clara County in California mentioned that they are creating an online website for people to communicate in these times what they need. My car broke down, I need a ride. I have to go to work for survival. Is there anyone in the community that can watch my child? I need somebody to go to the grocery store for me. I can't drive. And so they're creating one common website that everybody can access to communicate their needs so volunteers can help mobilize support for their community. So these are just a few examples that we wanted to share out.
Yes, and thank you, Julie. And one point I want to make is that we know what's real is that there is, and there always has been, the digital divide of who has access to technology or devices. So we're understanding more and more, leaning in from an equity point and stance, is that when trying to communicate with parents in so many different fashion, you know, whether it's by phone or if it's by email or if it's just talking one-on-one on the phone, we need to ask our families, what's your preference? There's different reasons why they may prefer one mode of communication over another. So we need to lean in and ask what works best for you, and then try to make those adaptations to support communication with them.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to share several ideas, and then we're going to take some ideas from you, and lots of things are coming through the chat. So thank you so much. We want to reinforce that now is the time to reach out to friends and family and connect with them however you can, and for you to encourage your colleagues, your staff, your families to do the same. It's the most important protective and resilience building factor we have. Let them know how much you care about them. And we want to suggest that we need to be intentional about this and really schedule our regular social interactions as part of your daily routines. So being purposeful and diligent about reaching out to people and encouraging, again, the families you're working with to do the same. While live human connection is really the best, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Face-to-face from afar, things like video chat where we can see one another's faces is the next best thing to in-person interaction. And this is because facial cues, body language, and other nonverbal forms of communication, really, we have that sense of the mirror neurons and being able to attune and connect to one another and build that sense of trust and belonging in the easiest ways, when we can actually see one another's faces. There's just a sense of being in connection, not being alone when you can see a face. If that's not possible, the human voice would be, the next best possible. And then of course, text and email and other things are also options. There's lots of different kinds of actions that people can take. And I don't know if you've probably been seeing around the world these collective forms of resilience that are coming up. You might have seen video of people like opera singers in Italy standing on their rooftops and singing to their neighbors, and pictures of people in Wuhan who were gathered at their windows and shouting to one another, "Keep fighting, Wuhan." But there's a way in which in these moments of stress and uncertainty and challenge that we also see tremendous creativity, tremendous innovation, thinking out of the box, and generativity in terms of new ideas and new possibilities. So we're going to share a few ideas, what we've learned from people, maybe some of you in the field of the things that are happening. And then we'll give you a chance to share even more. So some things that adults are doing, we've heard having digital dinners using FaceTime with their colleagues, or weekly check-ins with staff on Zoom. Folks are saying that's just really helpful to be able to see one another. Remote book club meetings. One group is doing a mindfulness meditation together on the phone. Others are looking for Zumba and online classes to allow themselves to move. They found it very helpful and grounding to be at a gym, and that was taken away, so now they're doing that. Planning, thinking about those who we want to prevent from the loneliness and social isolation, isolated or vulnerable families and elderly relatives, friends, and neighbors, coming together and scheduling calls once a week, twice a week, daily, making sure that we're just checking in on them. For young children, again, there's new things popping up. I heard about a kids yoga class. And again, not everybody can do that. We have different ways that we can participate with technology. A lot of teachers are thinking about doing daily storybook readings, whether on Zoom or other ways, but maybe they're taking turns and setting time each day to read. One person wrote in, she said, this is a parent, I've gotten together with some preschool moms at my daughter's preschool, and we've been connecting at least once a day through video chat. My child is having a really hard time not being at school, but video or calling her friends has been a great experience for her. She's introducing them to parts of her world. And she said, I guess this was last night, they were going to have a virtual baking party together. NC and Pastel, who's a teacher in the Bay Area, was sharing some suggestions around the technology. He said, as schools adapt to new technologies, it might be helpful if they designate somebody who's the most tech-savvy person or the most comfortable learning to onboard other teachers and parents, because for many teachers, many parents, many of us using these new these technical tools are really new. So having somebody there to reassure them and say, it's okay, this is hard, we're gonna lean in, we're gonna learn together, we're gonna make mistakes, but we're here to help you. It can really quell a lot of the anxiety and support people to take a risk and to try some new things. But I also want to stress this is a time to be generous, to give to others, giving to others in times of need, reaching out, practicing what we call the art of the 1-minute kindness. It not only is going to help others, but giving will give you that sense of agency and control, and it will really help you as well. And it's called a 1-minute kindness because it be something so small as receiving a direct message on social media, a phone call or an email where you authentically just express care, you're checking in, give somebody a compliment or express gratitude. These things can really reduce a sense of isolation and loneliness, help people feel that you're accompanying them with this journey, that they're not alone. And every single one of us needs some extra little kindness to counter the stress and uncertainty of the coronavirus. So we just need to remember that we have this innate capacity for empathy and caring in times of stress and suffering, and practicing social distancing does not need to change that fact. I imagine you've been sharing lots of things as I've been talking, but I do want to invite you to share the ways that you are already or that you can encourage the maintaining of social connections for yourself, for the families. How are you doing that? And how are you doing that in a time of social distancing? We want to hear your wonderful ideas. We gave eggs to the mailman. He was so thankful. I like the cards idea, letter writing, pen pals. Wonderful. My son's teacher has been sending families on the class dojo for different online activities, going back to the basics, finding the child's friends' addresses and making them a card. Terrific. Well, those are wonderful ideas. I'm sure there's more. The key is we really want to make sure not just that you're doing it, but that you're also really encouraging others around you to continue. Now, LaWanda is going to talk about meeting families' basic needs.
Hi. Yes, I know many of us are really been thinking in these last couple of weeks and more so this week about how do we support families' basic needs, and something we're tend to be used to doing when they're right with us, in front of us, talking with us, sharing their sometimes their own worries about just everyday life. But now we're in this environment of social distancing and still trying to practice social connection. And so some of the ways that we know that programs are doing it is trying to, for example, meet the needs of our childcare healthcare workers who are front and center in providing direct services to those who are ill. We have a number of school district programs and other programs that service providers who are offering free grab-and-go breakfast and lunch. And then there's our regional family resource centers that are in many different communities, but they are continuing to provide behavior or mental health supports, supporting with protections from eviction at this time and any other type of legal support as well as labor support. And then just mutual support networks. And one of the things I talked about earlier is just, for example, if you are part of a prayer group, if you're spiritual and that's something you want to lean into from that perspective, or libraries using their indoor space as emergency sites. But then we heard a lot of other stories that are just, it's just amazing and mind-blowing of how we're being responsive to families. And one story comes from Melissa McFeeters from Franklin Pierce Schools in Tacoma, Washington. And she shared that her school district is offering childcare for children of healthcare workers. And that's like a direct support and resource that they're doing. They're taking that on. And then Drew Giles, who might be on this call, Drew Giles, who is the director for Educare programs of Silicon Valley, shared that their family resource center is supporting food and housing. And there's a school next door to them who, again, is offering grab-and-go meals, but it's also to all children under the age 18. And then the staff, which I thought is amazing, the staff is also supporting the food distribution for that particular program. And then there's Camille Yanis from Somas Mayfair in San Jose, who serve a population who may be monolingual or dual language speaking, and they are supporting, their staff are taking turns and doing 2 shifts, an AM shift and a PM shift, so they don't get too tired or overwhelmed, but they're providing all the supports that we talked about, you know, whether it's rental support or making sure you're not evicted and knowing your legal rights about all of that. And then another great example from that same site I thought was pretty amazing is a database system. This is just mind-blowing for me, is that they're creating a database system that shows who is in need of what supports and then who is willing to fill that need and provide a support to that family or that staff person. Or so there's this exchange and reciprocity that's happening. And then in San Francisco, through their Parks and Recreation program, their libraries, they are offering indoor facilities, again, as emergency sites that can serve children and still practicing social distancing. And we may say, hey, what does that look like? But these are just examples of what folks are trying to do from an innovative lens. But as always, we're wanting to see this this session as a way to build community. And we invite you to share, like, what are you doing? What is your program doing to make sure they can meet families' basic needs? And any and all ideas are welcome. The Catholic Charities are open to families with basic needs, following up on resources for mental health. Books are being handed out during the lunch distributions given today. That's great. Businesses are offering free meals, so we're getting our business community involved. We're calling over those who are over 60 to make sure they are getting their needs met. Drive-through lunches, that's a new one. Wow, that's awesome. Our schools are giving out free breakfast, opening stores early for seniors. Yeah, I've seen that at Target and Walmart. Lunch distribution includes laptops, that's amazing. And making sure there's resources available in English, in Chinese. Families just want someone regular to check in with. Yes, free tablets for computer through Comcast for 60 days. I think it's technology access, sorry, just correct myself. So you can see there are a lot of similarities of what we're doing and also some really unique ideas. Oh, McDonald's is giving free meals to children for a certain time, but we need to make sure that's reliable information. Thanks for clarifying. So these are all really great examples. Staying connected with others, maybe Walmart could share some resources, town hall meetings, so on and so on. So yeah, these are all great examples. And again, they're innovative ideas that will help us make sure that our families don't go without. And this is who we always have been as an early education community and who we always will be. So thank you for all that you do. I'm now going to transition over to Julie Nicholson, who's going to start talking about supporting and engaging children.
Okay, thank you, LaWanda. So we want to spend a few minutes here sharing some ideas about supporting young children and their engagement during this time when they're not able to attend early learning programs. We know it's going to be really challenging for children and families as childcare centers, our family childcare homes, developmental play groups, our preschool classrooms, and many other early learning environments. These are providing children with opportunities to interact with each other, to have their consistent and stable routines, to have healthy meals, opportunities to play and explore, be guided in discovery. And for many families, these environments are so critical in allowing adults to work, maintain their employment, to provide safety. We have many families who are experiencing homelessness, experiencing migration and deportation stress and trauma, community violence, or other adverse experiences. And these programs can be, we know, sources of support, buffering for family stress, and reducing isolation. And so we wanted to say, as we begin to think about how to support and engage children, that we honor the really diverse contexts and experiences of families. Because as we've shared, some, but not all, will have access to the internet. Some, but not all, will be able to adapt home environments to recreate some of the opportunities and experiences that children were having in our childcare programs or settings. And some, but not all, will have a safe environment for children to be in for extended periods of time. I know we, at the end of our webinar today, are going to share a comprehensive resource list with you. And there's been wonderful resource lists circulating around about ideas that, for families to engage their children at home. We do want to recognize that a lot of the ideas assume families have access to data plans that allow unlimited streaming, or that parents can stop everything to become the child's preschool teacher, or that even they have stable housing and safety each day. And yet we know that this isn't the case. So when we open up this conversation, we want to remember all of our families, and we know it's going to take, we're on a learning journey, all of us together. It's going to take time, effort, leaning in together, thinking about how to meet the needs of each of our families and to really put equity front and center. So we're going to share some ideas, and then again, keep adding your ideas to the Zoom chat in how you are engaging and supporting children in our wide range of diverse families that we serve. Julie, do you want to share the first idea about Irma?
Thank you, Julie, for just mentioning that we're on this learning curve and journey together. This is why we're here today, is to share what you're doing so we can connect you all and your ideas to one another. One of the ideas, we've had several conversations with people all over the country to prepare for these webinars, and Irma Zavala, who's a family navigator and a parent, she shared with me that her son is very, very dysregulated. He couldn't even go to school because he was so scared of touching other children or germs, or he's going to die, he would come home and say. And she had to do a lot of work to co-regulate him and calm his internal anxieties. And one of the things that she said to me is, I recognized, one, I had to stop watching news in front of him and exposing him to social media. And two, he was picking up on my internal state of anxiety and my own reactions and fears. And the calmer I became, the more regulated I became, the safer he felt and the more regulated he was. And I was really struck by that and wanted to take that example today, that it's just a strategy that doesn't cost any money, is staying calm and letting our children know they're safe with us and how they can protect themselves, like in those beginning few slides. And I also want to thank Martha Brown, who's on the call right now, because I captured something that you said, Martha, as a family advocate. I just think it's so important you check in on families, you call them the family advocates, the family navigators. You have big jobs right now where you're reaching out to the families and making sure they're okay, and that's the way we need to connect. And then Drew Giles again, at Educare of Silicon Valley, he says they're doing daily read alouds using Facebook Live. And I spoke to another person, Kathleen Kelly at the Early Learning Institute, and she said they're partnering with the local resource and referral agencies to share ideas for preschool activities and how to get materials to the families and homes that may not have them. But they're also doing home visits for, not home visits, but virtual visits for 0 to 3. They're going virtual for the lesson plans. They're calling families on Facebook, or some of you have mentioned WhatsApp in the chat room, I noticed. And one example is they checked in with a mom, and the mom agreed to talk by phone. And the home visitor said, now get a soft blanket, set up this cozy area for the both of you to FaceTime with us. Let's make this a ritual when we talk, and we'll work together on gross motor activities. And these are just examples of ways in which we can do this. Another example she gave was a preschool daughter checked in 2 times per day with video chat with her friends. So they have baking parties, and they just make it a part of their routine. And one of the things that I'll close with before I hand it over to LaWanda with another example is, the thing we can do the most for our children is to stay calm and co-regulate them. And the second thing is to create new predictable routines and connect them to their friends, connect them in different ways to families and loved ones and relatives. And this example of doing it twice a day, I think, is a routine that will help children feel safe with clear expectations and predictability. LaWanda.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Just a few more examples. This comes from Oakland Unified School District, where we serve primarily low-income students who are brilliant and amazing. And our teachers are working in programs every day, trying to make sure that they can find a way in this time to dial into students. And I have to admit, one of our amazing site administrators, Teresa Lozak, came up with an idea of really looking at creating or helping parents to create a free subscription account with an organization called Epic, and many of you may already know about Epic, but what she was intentional in doing is selecting books that they had been reading in their classrooms already, and then sharing that with parents by sharing with them a code that they could use, and now those parents are able to read those same stories at home with their children. Another example that comes from one of our state-funded preschool programs is from Maranatha Hosick, who's just phenomenal. And what she started this week was doing daily circle time with her families, and she's using YouTube to record it, but she's using Instagram as a way to capture it in sort of a repository way where those videos can be archived. But she's doing a morning circle each morning paired with an activity. And then she's also then emailing all of that information to her parents, because she learned by asking that this is their preferred way of receiving communication. She's also are calling families directly one-on-one to speak with them, and her support staff person is also supporting her with this, especially for those who speak another language other than English, and her instructional aide is able to support her with the language differences and make sure that the communication is ongoing for those families. And what she's learning through the videos that she's sharing, that now the kids are sharing videos back with her, showing that they're doing certain activities that she's shared with them, and the families are doing it back with her. So now they've created an Instagram, a closed community, where families are also now connecting with one another. And this is sort of a byproduct of what she had expected. She was thinking, I'll do this kind of romper room style kind of learning with the children, you know, they can tap into me live every morning, but now families are connected to one another. So again, going back to those social connections and utilizing that, and children now sharing videos and pictures of them engaged in the activities. So just a couple more examples of what could be done. Move on to Julie Nicholson to share a few more examples.
Yeah, so I brought up Encian Pastel, who works at the Children's Community Center here in the Bay Area. And he shared that teachers at their site met together virtually and brainstormed ways to stay connected to families and children. And they decided to start by providing a consistent daily routine that mirrored the routine of a typical pre-coronavirus day via video conference, and to reassess by the end of the week. And I had shared earlier that, you know, he had suggestions for how to help staff and accompany them on the journey. I've been reading in the chat, people saying it's a really steep learning curve for many people on the technology. So absolutely. And he did talk about that, making sure, you know, finding somebody at your site who's a little bit more comfortable to be that patient, supportive person with you to learn and lean in. But he said since starting Tuesday, they've offered morning circle times for each class. They do a lunch story and also an afternoon group time, and they call a tea time at the end of their day. Most teachers, he said, are starting off conservatively. Most are reading stories as they are learning to adapt. But he said they're starting to add some more interactive elements, like leading a sing-along or facilitating discussions among children, leading a yoga pose or playing a game like Copycat, or prompting children to engage in a scavenger hunt. The response from the families has been really overwhelmingly positive. He said some parents are sitting and joining in, and some are using it as a really much needed chance to attend to other things. But most agree that it's really helping the program's sense of belonging to a community during this time. He also shared that he started a virtual circle time support group on Facebook. And I looked there, you know, there were, I don't know, I think maybe 100 people or something that had signed up, but they're meeting together as childcare teachers and providers and thinking about how to do virtual circle times. So there, you know, that was one example of a private program. We've been talking about different kinds of programs. And I wanted to share as well, we talked earlier about making sure that children have fun. And yesterday, we have to make sure we're also leaning into humor, finding moments to bring some lightness, some joy, some laughter. And I saw Parent Voices. I loved that they had a sense of humor on Facebook. They said, for everyone who's working from home with kids today, tell us something that your kids did, but call them your coworkers. So some of the answers, they just brought a smile to my face. They were very fun, brought humor in a stressful time. One person said, my coworker's having trouble with the 6-foot space issue. Someone else said, my coworker pulled out her tooth and put it on the table next to me when I was having lunch. My coworkers are making fridge art. My coworker kept demanding that he needed more waffles. So just having that, again, that sense of how can we find some laughter and joyfulness and taking moments to just find some humor amidst all of the stress. Before we've seen some of your ideas, but before I turn it over to asking you to type into the chat box, I did want to just add something that we also saw yesterday from Barb O'Neill, the founder of Transforming Challenging Behavior. She says, let's remember, we all want to think about what we're going to remember, not just us, but children, 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, 3 years from now. And what is that? We're going to remember how it felt. And the children are too. They're going to remember whether in their home, the grown-ups, it felt safe and the grown-ups were talking about something serious. They were maybe mumbling something about grandma, being extra vigilant about hand washing, but overall it felt like an oasis, it felt like safety. Or they might remember that it felt confusing and stressful, or maybe that there were power struggles because they didn't want to do their writing activities, or shame because they didn't do them correctly, or maybe they'll remember being hungry. She says, she reinforces, we really have to work together at this moment in time to take the pressure off. We need to support children to play, and just remember that although the list with all these ideas going around can be very helpful, and some families and children are ready to do these and will love them, some other, families, children, some of us need to take the pressure off. At this moment, we need to give each other permission to be, she says, a little unhinged, have all of our feels, not get everything done, but to bumble through this together as lovingly as possible. So I think that sense of just remembering to take a deep breath. We're going to learn some new routines. We're going to try and be stretched to take some risks, but also that we just need to take some time as well to not put so much pressure on us, because that puts pressure, the stress, it creates stress for us, and our children pick up on that. So let's hear from you. What ideas do you have for supporting and engaging children while they're unable to attend your program? And those that are technology related and those that are not. We'd love to hear you continue to share. So Jessica says, I love the virtual circle time. What a great idea to keep things familiar. Maintain routines and rituals. This could be a great opportunity for parents to engage in life skills. Making pancakes with the parent, back to the basics. Many don't have things like Legos. So yes, found materials in the house or outside, having a game night, cooking, cleaning. Children cleaning absolutely can be very engaging. Daily communication, having the teachers plan interactive activities, calling the parents. Wonderful. Okay. Making Play-Doh or slime, songs, recycled materials for craft projects. Terrific. Simple curriculum activities, and having a tea party or a board game night, edible Play-Doh. Great. One last idea I forgot to share here that I will comes from a program, a private program where the teachers are starting a YouTube channel, and each day they're posting different, one new thing. So maybe a book reading, maybe one teacher she has guinea pigs in her home, and so she was talking to the children about the guinea pigs. Another teacher is going to go through her recycling bin and talk about what to do with recycled materials and recycled parts. So lots of wonderful ideas for supporting and engaging children while they're unable to attend our programs. Thank you so much. So Julie, do you want to share how people can keep in touch?
Yes, we want to thank you for being here today with us on this journey of figuring all of this out. Feels like the rug was pulled out from under us. Our own routines and relationships were discombobulated, and we're trying to make sense of it for ourselves as well as for the children. What I can share with you is that you can locate these webinars recorded online at www.optimalbrainintegration.com. You can also join our COVID community, where we are continually keeping a community to stay connected to ongoing resources. So you'll find that on our homepage. You'll find the button at the very top in red for this webinar and all the handouts. We'd love for you to also join us on Facebook at the Center for Optimal Brain Integration, or Instagram Kobe, or email us with any questions that you have. Most of what we post on our social media is around trauma, trauma-informed practices, resilience building for early childhood, all the way up to age 8. And let's close with the last slide. One of the things I want to share is that Julie Nicholson and myself wrote the first book with other authors, the Trauma-Informed Practices for Early Childhood Educators, relationship-based approaches that support healing and build resilience for young children. Many of the concepts today from this PowerPoint were taken from that book. And then all three of us, LaWanda, Julie Nicholson, and myself, we released our second book in the trauma series called Culturally Responsive Self-Care Practices for Early Childhood Educators. If you find that would be valuable for you during this time, we would love to share that with you. So we just wanted to share a couple more resources and where some of the slides from our PowerPoint came from, these resources. So do any of the other panelists have anything they want to add before we hand it over to Fernando?
LaWanda, can you just share what you put in the chat room as the reference link?
Just shared it.
Very good. So a comprehensive list of resources. There's a link there. I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's been wonderful to watch all your chat example ideas, and you can see right here, right in front of us, in front of our very eyes, the beauty of community leaning in together and our collective resilience.
Although we experience both at the same time, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you all so much. Fernando, do you want to close us with some comments?
Thank you.
I do, thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank our presenters today, Julie Nicholson, LaWanda, and Julie Kurtz, for the wonderful and informative presentation. I'll also like to remind everybody that this webinar session was recorded and will be made available for on-demand consumption within 24 to 48 hours. We'll work hard to get this up as soon as possible, and it will be up on our website as well, and our YouTube channel, which could be found at www.region9hsa.org. If you scroll down at the very bottom of the homepage, you will find a link to our YouTube channel, and that's where this session, as well as the 1 p.m. Pacific time session, will be for everybody to see. Also, please note that watching this session and or going into our YouTube channel and watching any of the two sessions does not qualify for CEUs. To earn CEUs, viewers will have to access this course on demand and complete the test at continued.com/ECE. To access the course, viewers will use promo code FREESUPPORT for free access to this course, as well as the Early Childhood Leader session that took place earlier today. And the courses should be available online by the end of March. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Hopefully the information was helpful. Thanks again to our three wonderful presenters. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us here at the Region 9 Head Start Association. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.